Even now, 24 years after it was first released, the Porsche Boxster still divides opinion. Some say it's not a proper Porsche, a poor man's 911, but drive even the most basic of models and you'll realise it's a proper sports car with a beautifully balanced chassis and a glorious flat six howl. That changed in 2016 though, when the Boxster was robbed of one of its most endearing features and given a fairly flat sounding turbocharged 4-cylinder in the name of efficiency and emissions. Performance was up, but it didn't receive the most warm of receptions. Now I'm no purist, so I don't really care if it has a historically correct amount of cylinders, and to drive, the added torque was welcome and it was still a technically brilliant car, but if you'd experienced the old 6-pot, it just wasn't the same. Now though, Porsche have listened to the criticism and given us the naturally aspirated 6 back, and it's bigger and more powerful than ever. Thanks to Porsche Centre Sheffield and a kind SCD member who owns this car, we're looking at the top of the Boxster tree today, the Spyder. Now, a lot of 718 owners get quite defensive over that 4-cylinder engine on forums, and I get it. You get more performance more of the time compared to the old naturally aspirated 6. It's a much wider torque curve. But allow me to make a counter argument without even saying a word. Now that's out of the way, let's talk about the Spyder. The first generation of Spyder actually came in the second generation of Boxster, the 987. And whilst underneath it wasn't really much more than a lightened up Boxster S, it was an awesome back to basics driving machine. It was great fun. The second generation, the 981, that turned things up a little bit with a 3.8 litre engine from a 911. It sounded glorious and it was so good to drive that it was hailed as basically a GT4 without a roof. It never quite was a GT4 though. See, the GT4 is a proper Porsche GT division product. The Spyder wasn't, and so it did without the GT4's motorsport derived suspension. This 718 Spyder is different though. This is the first Boxster to officially be a Porsche GT division product, and that means bar the roof, it shares everything with the GT4. That's the suspension, the brakes, this awesome 6-speed gearbox, and the all-important 4-litre naturally aspirated 6. Yeah, we've gone back to 6 cylinders in a 718, and it's how it should be. It's got 420 horsepower, 320 pound-foot of torque, and we live in this strange world where people are like, oh, well, that's not a lot. I mean, one, it's a Boxster, it's a lot, and two, that is the same amount of power as a 996 turbo. And trust me, it is more than enough in a car weighing 1400 kilos. It pays to rev it out, but you don't have to actually. Even from 3,000-4,000 revs it pulls along pretty nicely, but it gives you some reward for going for it. And the gearbox is so nice to use that you just change gear for the sake of it. It's got a little button here that says auto blip, so that'll perfectly blip all your down changes for you. I have tried it like once just to see if it works, and it's Porsche, it works perfectly, but doing it yourself, it's all part of the experience. And as ever with Porsches, the pedals are just perfectly placed for it. The steering, as we know now in modern Porsches, is electronically assisted, but you have this beautifully simple Alcantara wheel. It's round like a steering wheel should be, there are no buttons on it, and it is so direct. I've got the dampers in soft now because we're on the road, there's no need for them to be in the firm mode and make everything all a bit skittish, and still it is just so direct. I think I'd spec this car really well. I love the gold wheels on the outside, the red roof, this interior is absolutely the one I'd go for. These 918 bucket seats are awesome. I kind of wish they were heated today. It's a little bit cold in here, but that brings me on to another point about the Spyder. It's a very nice day today, but it is freezing. But would you drive with the roof up? No, of course you wouldn't drive it with the roof up. That brings me to a point that Sam from Seen Through Glass made recently on his video on the 911 Speedster, this car's big brother, that 90% of the time you drive with the roof down, and this is exactly the same. It has a roof. It's not as much of a faff as the early Spyders, although it's still a manual job, but it is purely there for if you get caught in a British shower. Even in the middle of winter, you drive this car with the roof off, just to be part of that experience. The brakes as well. This has got the steel brakes, not the ceramics. And honestly, they're great. They've got a sharp feel at the top, give you loads of confidence. And you do not need ceramics on a car like this, you just don't. The steels do an amazing job, and they don't cost the earth to replace. Plus the red calipers go with the spec as well. The front end is just awesome. Even on a day like today, this is on Pilot Sport Cup 2s. It's a little bit damp, 7.5 degrees. The tyres aren't exactly suited to today. So I'm being a tad careful with it, but it's the sort of car that feels so on your side still. I think if you put a set of Pilot Sport 4S's on this, just drive it whenever you want. Who cares if you get a bit wet? I mentioned the gearbox, and when this car came out, just like the 981 Spyder, the only option was this 6-speed manual. You can order it with a PDK now, and I think PDK is awesome, but for this kind of car that's made for fun rather than outright speed, you've got to go for the manual, and it's one of the best manuals I've ever used. It is so precise and snappy. It's just a joy to go up and down it. Now, the thing people talk about quite a lot, and have done ever since the GT4, is the actual gearing. And it is the same in this, that second gear will take you all the way over 80 miles an hour. And I do wish the gearing was a little bit shorter so that you can be up at the top of the revs more of the time. You can change gear more often. You know, you can enjoy that flat 6 howl and the top of the power band more, because in second gear at the top of the revs, you're way past any speed limit in the UK. But as people have said about the GT4, if the sound needing unlocking a little bit, and if it should have slightly shorter gearing is about the only criticism you can throw at it, you've got yourself a pretty damn good sports car. All the way to 8,000 there. This is what a sports car should be like for me. Something that even on a cold day like today, on a narrow, twisty British road, you can get in and you can actually give it some stick. It's got the modern performance, the handling, the braking, the interior, but the driving experience is all you. You're involved. It is more than fast enough. It sounds great, and I think the overwhelming thing is it is just balanced. I hate to say it because everyone sort of expects this from a Porsche review. To me, it's pretty much perfect. I can't think of a much better car to go down a road like this. If ever a car's 0 to 62 time didn't tell the whole story, this is it. 4.4 seconds would have keyboard warriors screaming that it couldn't keep up with their hot hatch. But wind it out all the way to 8,000 and it really is a quick car. And on a track, those hot hatches wouldn't see which way the Spyder went. But it's not so quick that it overwhelms the chassis, and it doesn't get out of hand on a twisty road. And that's the whole point of the Spyder. It's all about going back to basics, by today's standards at least, and putting driving enjoyment first. Everything from the seats to the most tactile manual gear change, the steering, the balance, the razor sharp response of the naturally aspirated motor, and even the ride quality make for one of the most complete driving experiences out there. And it's even worth mentioning that, manual roof and slightly sketchy rear visibility aside, the Spyder sacrifices very little in daily usability and comfort over the standard Boxster, even on bumpy British roads. And the fact that Ada's done over 6,000 miles in less than 8 months is testament to that. No one part of the car dominates the experience, it all just works together. And I know people get bored of hearing yet another glowing review of a Porsche GT car. And sure, if you want gut-punching acceleration, drifting on tap, or drama for the sake of drama, this isn't the car for you. But if you want to grab a car by the scruff of the neck on a winding road and drive for the sake of driving, the Spyder is up there with the best.